In a recent rare interview, President Joe Biden's son, Hunter Biden, opened up about his sobriety, saying it's imperative to not only his life that he stay sober, but that it is essential to ensure former President Donald Trump does not return to the Oval Office. Hunter told Axios, quote, "Most importantly, you have to believe that you're worth the work or you'll never be able to get sober. But I often do think of the profound consequences of failure here. I have always been in awe of people who have stayed clean and sober through tragedies and obstacles few people ever face. They are my heroes, my inspiration. I have something much bigger than ever, than even myself at stake. We are in the middle of a fight for the future of democracy."
In other news, the SAG-AFTRA union has confirmed that several boxes containing files belonging to former CBS senior investigative correspondent Catherine Herridge were returned to her. CBS staffers reported that Heritage's files, computers, and records were seized after her dismissal from the company. A new piece from The Hill indicates that Herridge, quote, was pursuing stories that were unwelcomed by the Biden White House and many Democratic powerhouses. The piece claimed that CBS, quote, took the unusual step of seizing her files, computers, and records, including information on privileged sources. A CBS spokesperson said in a statement, Catherine's personal belongings were delivered to her home 1 week ago, and we are prepared to pack up the rest of her files immediately on her behalf, with her representative present as she requested. We have respected her request to not go through the files and out of our concern for confidential sources. The office she occupied has remained secure since her departure. All right, so the Hunter Biden story, I do feel like if he really believes in protecting his father's political interests and that the weight of the country depends on it, that's a very heavy shoulder for someone battling sobriety to bear. And also, I'm not sure talking about it in this way to the press is actually in furtherance of that goal.
Yeah, I mean, he's completely right, though. The observation is correct. If he does think his father getting reelected is important for the country, I mean, he probably thinks it's a good thing to happen anyway because it's his dad, even if the stakes weren't as extreme as many Democrats are making them out to be. It is, in fact, true that if he falls off the wagon, if there's more embarrassing stories about him involving substance abuse, et cetera, that it does fairly or unfairly hurt his father's reelection campaign. That's just like true.
Man, it does seem to me that the issue with Hunter Biden is whether or not there was some pay-to-play scheme between him and his father and various unsavory characters in Russia or Ukraine. Not that he has struggled with substance abuse. I mean, there have been Bushes that suffered from substance abuse. This is not a new thing for a presidential family member to have had an issue. And as much
Malia
as
got an A- on her homework assignment once, too.
I mean, those girls had to keep their noses extremely clean.
No, and it's unfair. And the burden on, frankly, on famous people's presidents' children is way too high, even although Hunter Biden's problems are in their own category, I think. But
sure, but as much as I do think that sometimes Democrats substitute in his personal struggles when they're trying to defend him and describe what Republicans are saying about him as unfair, most of the criticism does seem to have fallen on much more substantive grounds than the fact that he is just a guy who's been struggling with some things. I mean, with some exceptions. Obviously, you had Marjorie Taylor Greene showing images from the laptop in Congress that didn't seem germane to anything other than her just being salacious. But for the most part, this does seem to be a little bit of a distraction. It's not that Biden is going to lose if Hunter falls off the wagon. It's that Biden will lose if it's proven that he was using his father to earn money from foreign actors with his father's knowledge and with kickbacks to his father.
Yes, I agree with that, although he could make those accusations seem more credible in people's eyes if he falls off the wagon again. Engaging in substance abuse causes you to do all sorts of other risky things. Remember, there was a wrongly discarded gun because of this. I mean, it could, if he engages in further tax, financial, gun-related, drug-related things that, again, do I think they're a big deal? Or, I think you should be able to
Or are they Biden's fault?
Does it put Biden in a position where he has to get Hunter Biden off the hook for something?
Sure, yes.
That's part of the whole narrative, that these things weren't investigated properly. So it does, for better or worse, get Biden in more trouble, because it is a little bit more complicated, even though I agree with you that it's not really Biden's fault or anyone's fault if you have adult son suffering from substance abuse, but it could put Biden in additional awkward positions, as it clearly already has, with regard to the prosecution and all of that.
What do you make of this Catherine Heritage story?
Oh, yeah, this has really been bubbling up on social media. I've been seeing a lot of people discussing this. Michael Schellenberger has been talking about it, and a lot of others. So Catherine Heritage was this very well-respected kind of national security reporter, general interest reporter, who worked at Fox and left Fox for CBS, and then was fired recently in these mass layoffs. You know, she's one of 800 people fired, so you could say, I'm sure she commands an impressive salary, and they let a whole lot of people go, and they had to have some big fish in there, too, to make it economically viable. Layoffs are happening all over the media, very bad time for the industry, et cetera, and so on. However, she was doing stories that were very critical of the Biden administration, and people wonder whether, in this whole kind of people in the media afraid to helping to reelect Donald Trump, if there's something going on there. And then they kept these, and she is right now she is in a court battle for work she did at Fox before she came to CBS, where it's one of those cases where the judge is trying to compel her to give up her source, and she's refusing. Fox is still paying her legal bills. She could go to jail for doing the work of journalism, for refusing to give up a source. So this did really rub people the wrong way, that CBS was keeping her files, her computers, where she probably has information about confidential sources. And so there was a lot of criticism from all directions. The SAG-AFTRA union getting involved, saying this is totally contrary to journalistic practice. This endangers her, it endangers her sources. So glad to see CBS do the right thing and give her back these files. They say they did not look through them. I guess we gotta trust that, hope that was the case.
Right, but this is a pretty serious implication here, this argument that at the time that she was fired, she was, quote, pursuing stories that were unwelcomed by the Biden White House and many Democratic powerhouses.
Yes.
You know, if it is true, I mean, if it is true that not just the firing
and the if is a big if there.
It's a big if. But that the firing was related to her reporting, and that this delay in returning her documents was to disrupt her ability to report by implicating some of her confidential sources, that is huge. So I can understand why CBS would be very quick to want to put a bow on this and say, here's your stuff, I promise I didn't do anything. But I'd be very interested to keep watching what Heritage reports out next, given that she was reportedly working on some pretty sensitive stuff.
Yes, absolutely. We will be paying attention to that quite closely, and we'll have more Rising right after this.